Hello, this is PG, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Star Wars Jedi Survivor on the Xbox Series X. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is an action-adventure game developed by Respawn Entertainment. You play as Cal Kestis, a Jedi who continues to struggle against the Galactic Empire and uncover the ancient secrets of the Jedi. So what is the game like to play? Well, first let's talk about the combat. Being a Jedi means you'll be wielding a lightsaber paired with your Force abilities. This leads to some impressive set pieces where you'll be wading into large groups of hostile foes, throwing them around with the Force and cutting a sway through them in some deliciously divine fights. Cal is now a more impressive Jedi, and this shines through in his powers. As time goes by, you'll learn new Force powers, and by the end, you'll feel a true sense of being a Jedi. Despite this power, it is still a pretty challenging game in terms of combat, with dangerous foes that you have to take seriously. But along with those are some pretty weak stormtroopers who, they're basically just cannon fodder. Cal can adopt different fighting stances and also can use single or double-ended lightsabers. There is a blaster as well, which comes into play a bit later on. I felt like that was a very weird addition. A Jedi using a blaster just does not sit right, doesn't feel right, just felt weird. So combat, pretty cool. What about the platforming and the puzzle solving? Now, one thing that's worth pointing out is the game is more focused, I'd say, on getting around the game world, solving puzzles, than the actual combat on the whole. I'd say it's a 70-30 split. And, you'll have to enjoy climbing, swinging on ropes, riding local creatures, shimmying on ledges, using Force powers to solve puzzles, etc. One thing I found weird, being a Jedi, you'd think getting around would be actually quite easy, but there are times where you can't proceed because there's a 2-meter wall in front of you. Apparently Jedi can't use Force to jump 2 meters high. It's just little things like that that kind of break the immersion of being a sort of high-end Jedi. In terms of the game world, there's several planets to explore, and they are quite large, definitely larger than the ones in Fallen Order. Being larger and more expansive makes for longer stretches of time between combat, mapping your route, using your AI buddy to view a scan of the environment, trying to locate secrets. But I can't say the increase in scale benefits the game though, often leading to aimless meandering. Now there is a planet with a hub town. This can change over time, including things like a really pointless garden and some weird additions. It's one of those games that's just copied other games to say, let's have a hub that evolves, but it never really felt like home, never really felt like a place you wanted to hang out. Now the size of the game, I'd say, also affects loading times. This was played on the Series X, but there's some really long loading times. It's just totally unnecessary. If you're going to make a game, think about that, because that does, again, break immersion. In terms of customization, Cal can use a skill tree to upgrade things like survival, lightsaber and Force powers. You can have perks as well. These are unlocked under certain conditions. There's workbenches. You can customize what your AI buddy looks like, the lightsaber and the blaster. You've also got a lot of cool clothing options, but again, these are not things that are just readily available. You've got to find them or you've got to buy them. And finally, I'd say let's have a look at the story. The narrative has got some moments of intrigue and quality, but it never really lived up to the more interesting Fallen Order in terms of the character development or the character arc. I'd say there's lots of middle-of-the-road characters and Disney-esque cute stuff that is just there to find adorable, but it adds nothing in terms of overall quality of the experience or the narrative. Visually, it's one of the most beautiful Star Wars games that I've ever seen. The character models are lovely, the clothing options are varied, intricate. The worlds also look really pleasant to explore, but with the beauty comes a compromise. It's about 140 gig or around that mark to install, and for a game of that size it really fails to deliver in terms of quality performance matching with the visuals. Loading times, it's quite disappointing. There's visual glitches, there's gameplay glitches, there's slow loading textures, frame slippage. It's a very performance-wise lackluster affair. In terms of sound, the music and sound effects are absolutely top drawer stuff. Generally, the voice acting I'd say is very, very good, although there are a few characters in it that have such a monotone style that it makes you just want to turn the game off or mute it because it just sucks the life out of any of the narrative. Anyway, verdict, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a solid sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. It continues the journey of Cal and is definitely a broader and bigger experience. But the question is, does this sequel improve on the first game? I would say no, because bigger isn't always better, and the narrative frankly isn't as interesting or engaging as the first game. Saying that, combat is a huge amount of fun, and the platforming elements are very smooth indeed, but I would say it tries to add too many new things like blasters for the Jedi, an evolving town. None of these things really work. So on the whole, it's a bit of a downgrade in my opinion, but it's still playable, still enjoyable in large parts. Would I recommend it? I would, but probably in the sales, mainly because I'd say it's just lower your expectations. If you loved Fallen Order, you will like this, but you won't love this. I think this is definitely a step backwards, or it's just like it's not moving in the right direction, but it's still a decent game. Scoring, I'd give Star Wars Jedi Survivor a 7 out of 10. That's the review. Thanks for watching. This is PG, signing off. Cheers.